Now, if you want to compress the golf ball like you see all the top pros, and you want to do it on every single shot, well, I'm going to show you here exactly how to always compress that golf ball. So I'm going to show you the 3 must-have things you need in your swing to be able to do it, how to train those 3 movements, and what to feel on the golf course as well to get it. So let's dive straight into it. So the first key we need to be able to compress the golf ball is a square club face. Because what we've got to understand, when we're trying to compress the golf ball, what are we doing? We are getting that little bit of shaft lean is such a key component. And to be able to have a little bit of shaft lean, hands a little bit ahead at impact, we need the club face to be square. Because a lot of golfers will have an open face. So let's say here in the early takeaway, toes pointing up towards the sky. They won't be able to compress the golf ball from there. Because for them to hit target, they have to throw their hands. You'll get these really high, weak, floaty shots, really easy to overdo it here. So let me open up this face and just try and hit the ball to target. I would have to flip, not very compressed, really quite weak. So like there, for example, I hit my 8-iron, that was then 133. So absolutely not compressed, really, really high. So we want that club face to be nice and square. So that's making sure the club face angle is matching the spine angle or matching the arc through the golf swing. Because then when we have a tiny bit of shaft lean, that club face is going to remain square. Because we've got to remember, okay, if we have an open face with shaft lean, the club face remains open and gets even more so if it's nice and square and we're rotating, which is a very key thing in this video. Of course, we're going to create some shaft lean. That is going to keep square. We need a square face to be able to compress it. So nice square face here. Hit that very slightly off the toe as a mishit, and the mishit has gone 150 yards. That is a huge difference from what we just saw. So even with a bad strike, if you compress it, you're still going to be hitting some nice shots. So the second key we need in the golf swing is to have the right arm be in front of the seam line, so the middle of our side there, in the downswing. Super, super important, because if that right arm is staying in front of the seam line, middle of our side there, that's going to get that right arm moving nicely in. So then as we're getting through that shot, that's going to create a nice little bit of shaft lean, stacking the cards in our favor to do this. And that's going to help a ton. Because what we see a lot of golfers who struggle with having, of course, good compression, they'll have their right arm get stuck behind the seam line. So then as they turn, they get in what we call internal shoulder rotation, where you can see that elbow starts to point away. Now, what does that look like from the front on angle? That looks like a little bit of space between the right arm and your body. So that means as you start getting into that shot from there, the only way you could really get onto that ball is to then have a little last minute throw of the hands. So that isn't compressing the ball, that's adding loft. So that's why we need this right arm to stay in front of seam line. That gives you a little bit more of an externally rotated shoulder position, elbow pointing a little bit more down. Here the greats of the game always talking about elbow pointing down. So regardless of whether a golfer is a little bit more away with their arm or slightly closer, their elbow will still be pointing down, not like so behind their seam line. So when that elbow is pointing down, it gets easier to get in front. That's where you can see hands in a good delivery position. Boom. Then you can just turn on that ball and compress it nicely. So if we get that arm sinking behind the seam line of the shirt, right around the middle, really hard to hit a powerful, good compressed shot like that. Loads of mishits can happen. I hit that way, way, way off the toe. And then of course, if we make sure that right arm staying in front of seam line, becomes so much easier to hit some nice, powerful shots with some good compression without really trying too hard. Now, the third thing we need to compress the golf ball, and that is covering the ball. So something we've probably heard a ton, really getting that chest on top of that ball. I like the feeling of having the chest as an exaggerated feel on top of the left leg. Hear so many top players in the world talking about turning on top of their left leg to really compress one. That's, again, if you've got those other keys in your swing, that's going to make it so you're right on top of it. And all you need to do is turn through it to create this really nice shaft lean, really good compression. Because if golfers end up hanging back quite often subconsciously to help the ball up, the upper body gets back there, so what's going to happen? They have to, again, throw the hands and arms through the golf ball, because when you hang back, your rotation slows and stalls. So the only thing you can do to get the club through the ball is fire the hands. You'll get these high, weak ones, quite often probably fat or thin as well. So let me hang that upper body back. So that felt fat toe left. And absolutely, that's not going to work. So we want to cover that golf ball, get that chest getting on top of that left leg as a feel. Ultimately, the chest stays relatively near the belt buckle. If anything, it's actually slightly behind it impact, but again, we're shifting pressure left. But if we can feel chest on top of the left leg as we're turning through, might feel crazy, but give it a go. You are going to compress the golf ball and hit it so much more solidly. Because watch this, what was that one? 130 carry, again, not great. Chest on top of the left leg. This is something I always feel in my golf swing. This is one of my main swing thoughts I have. Chest on top of the left leg. Let's cover it and have a look. There we go, really nice. That one, 159. It's a bit different from where we were before. Works really well. Give that a good go. Okay, how do we train these moves into the golf swing? So we're going to make this nice and simple. The first 2 points there, when it comes to club face and making sure the right arm's in a good spot, we can do that with two things, grip and a good takeaway. So, okay, safest bet, if someone's getting, let's say, an open club face of saying what they're doing, they are having a weak grip, a little bit what we could talk about in the takeaway. So if we have a weak grip where we're just seeing one knuckle on the left hand and the right hand there, guys, you've always got to look at your right hand. So many of you don't. And right hand there, line between thumb and the meat hand, that crevice there, pointing towards left side. Really, really weak. So that's where golfers are going to flare that face open. They're going to need to flip it from there and not compress it. So 2.5 knuckles, left hand, absolute must. Right hand there, line between thumb and the meat of the hand, pointing towards right armpit there. So remember that right hand. So that's going to give vast majority of all golfers on the planet a square club face from there. Now, takeaway is going to help for our second part of how to train this. It's going to help for keeping the club face in a good spot, but also for that trail arm. So a lot of golfers who get that trail arm pulling behind their seam line and then gets away from them having to throw into the golf ball. That's again a little bit of setup and their takeaway. So a lot of golfers with that will set up like this. Right arm turned in to where the underside of the elbow points almost down their target. We want the underside of the elbow instead to point in front. Because if it's pointing here, the only place you can go is back behind you like you're starting a lawnmower. If we're having that elbow, underside of it, pointing at you or slightly left of in front of you there, you're going to have the right arm naturally fold up. And that's what we want. We want the right arm to fold, not to pull back. It's like you're doing a half bicep curl motion. Like in the gym, full bicep curl is of course forearm to bicep. Half bicep curl is where forearm gets to 90 degrees. That's our motion. So if we can make sure right arm's in a good spot, we've got a good grip. And that takeaway now, we want to make sure that these two arms are feeling relatively close together, a little bit of bend in the right arm, but make sure that club face here is slightly outside the hands. So keys in that takeaway of how to train this. Do yourself some nice rehearsals like you see all the top tour players do. Have that club head either slightly outside the hands or on the hands, slightly toed down so it's matching spine angle, and feel like those elbows are close to each other with a tiny bend in that trail arm. If you can do that and then you swing up to the top with good rotation, you're going to be in that good right arm spot nicely. So how to train it? Good grip, right elbow pointing in front, takeaway, let's say hands in, club out is a good one to do, and then making sure right arm relatively close to left with a slight bend in it. Now, third part is making sure that, of course, we're getting that covering the ball of how to train that. So I've got a good training aid for you to do. And once you get those first two keys in there, and with this training aid, you're going to be compressing it every time. And then we can talk about how to bring that onto the course. Okay, so here is our training aid to train covering the golf ball. So what I've got here, I've got the swing plate. So again, there's a link in the description to get a nice discount off the swing plate. And what we do here with this, okay, we've got our keys with our grip, setup position, takeaway move, which we're going to drill it into a position. Once we got this here, get the alignment stick, so swing plate here, extension pole. So you could do this with a long alignment stick out of a golf bag or something you could devise up as well. Have it just about 4 fingers outside the right side of your head. Because for so many golfers who can't compress it, again, like we said, they're falling back with their chest, having to fire with their hands. So if you have this here coming up just by your head, it forces you to stay away from it. So that means you're going to be covering it more. And I've done this tons and tons. This is my main drill that I do when I go and play, well, when I go and practice. So really good one, because it makes sure you're covering it every time without thinking about it. We're going to have a good thought for it on the golf course, absolutely. But again, if I put this in position so we can hit some balls, what we're going to do, have this here just outside, right side of the head. Absolutely brilliant. So 4 fingers, good grip, get ourselves into a good takeaway. So there we go, we've got our checkpoint. Right arm is close to the left, having a little bend, hands in, club out, and what we do, we swing up and swing through from that position, hitting the ball. Think of like a Ricky Fowler drill or a Nick Faldo drill. There we go, and swing up and swing through. That was a very lovely feeling strike. That's how you're going to compress it really nicely doing there. And that's where, if you really struggle with compression, this is going to give you all those elements. Right arm's going to be in front because of the good takeaway, good setup position. You're going to be covering the ball nicely because of this, and you're going to have a good club face because of the takeaway, and of course because of the grip. And then ultimately what you need to do from there is hit as many balls as you possibly can doing this. There's no secret around it. What did Hogan say? The secret's in the dirt. Oh, that felt good. I don't think it picked it up. Oh, that was the best one as well. So that felt absolutely amazing, really lovely. I think it was just outside the hitting area there. Unfortunately for me, we're getting into our nice set position, good grip, and then turn through, make sure we're not hitting this. Let's talk about then how to get it into your swing on the golf course. Oh, that felt good as well. Very, very nice. Let's get into it, how to do it on the course. Okay, so how do we get this onto our golf swing on the golf course? Now, as we know, the golf course is a byproduct of our most subconscious movement pattern. So what does that mean? What we've been practicing. So ultimately, the simple answer to this, which is, again, not very appealing, is ultimately the practice is going to get it onto the golf course. If you're not doing it consistently on the course, that's a reflection that you need to do it more in practice. But there are thoughts we can have, of course, to be able to help us along the way. So what do we need to do? We need to have a good pre-shot routine of rehearsing a few movements and just one, maybe 2 swing thoughts. Let's talk about 2. Ultimately, it's 1 really. So, okay, pre-shot routine, we're out on the golf course. This is where you see all the best players in the world do all the manner of different things to be able to prime themselves to hit the ball nicely, of course, when it's their time to hit. So for us, what we need to do, okay, good grip, takeaway position, like we see all the best players do this, so many of them do. Think of, let's say, Justin Thomas does it a lot, Ricky Fowler again, many, many more. And then as we kind of swing up, feel like you're going on top of your left leg as you're turning through. So we're getting into our takeaway. We can do it a couple times, and then when we swing up, get on top of the left leg and turn through. That's getting that covering movement. Okay, so when we're over the golf ball, how do we do this? Okay, so we could do a couple waggles just to make sure we're in a good spot. Then what I want you to feel, slow off the ball to make sure you're getting that takeaway. And then just feel, okay, we talked about this a little bit before, chest on top of the left leg as you're turning in that downswing going through the golf ball there. So a lot of players here are going to think, well, I've been told to go fast for club head speed off the golf ball. Again, if you're trying to increase your speed, sure, but if you've got a poor takeaway, there's no point doing it poor but quickly, is it? It'll just make it way harder to do. So nice and controlled with those same moves, chest on top of the left leg as you're turning through that impact area in the downswing. Let's give it a go. So a couple of rehearsals. And then nice rhythm will be also another one that you could have. Chest on top of the left leg and through. And that's how you can go and think about it on the golf course. So again, if we go through our routine and go into the shot. So here we go. Of course, go through picking our targets, get into it. Get a rehearsal or 2, then nice and slow off the ball, chest on top of the left leg, good rhythm. And there we go. So, if we can do that, again, the key is in the practice here. We will always compress that golf ball. So if you enjoyed this video, click that like button. If you want more golf instruction, just like this, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video.